All right, so moving on to the next question. This was New York Magazine, who would fall on the lowbrow and brilliant section of the approval matrix. Who is the biggest asshole in the NBA? Starting with Ben.
Did you just make a New York Magazine reference? Yeah. Wow, look at him showing off.
East Coast.
I don't need much time for this, and partly has to do with being a UCLA fan. Here's the thing. The biggest ass in the NBA is, and I think will be for me for some time, Joakim Noah. And as a UCLA fan, that was established when he was at Florida very solidly. But if I were a Bull fan, I would love him.
I was told I could go for coaches and GMs, not just players, so I am going to go with Greg Popovich. We've only done 2 of these so far, but in case you can't tell, I'm pretty high on this guy. But it's because he's an asshole, and it's because he's got all these players to buy into this system. And I think his assholeness is going to be tested at the end of this season, because it sounds like Kawhi Leonard's going to go for a max deal, and I don't think Mr. Asshole is going to have any of it.
I don't think it's assholeness. I think it's assholity.
Assholity.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, I went to journalism school.
Yeah.
I don't think he's an asshole. I think he's too smart. He's too funny. But, he's rigid, and you have to buy into a system. So, I hear where you're coming from. I want to follow up a little bit on what I said about Noah, because he's so unlikable on the court.
Yeah.
But you get the sense that his teammates like him. Mm-hmm. And I know that if I were a Bull fan, almost inconceivable that he wouldn't be my favorite player.
Of course. He's one of those guys. He relentlessly busts his ass. How many times? Did they do a stat about guys that how many times they hit the deck per game? Because he would definitely lead the league in that.
And there's some guys who hit the deck for no reason.
Yeah.
Who seem to be diving in order so that we'll talk about them. Like every time Isaiah Thomas hit the deck, I thought he was looking for the camera.
Well, Isaiah Thomas, every time he would hit the deck, always made it look like it was a career-ending injury.
Isaiah Thomas, let's talk about Isaiah Thomas. The biggest faker in the history of sports. The San Diego Chargers had a quarterback named Stan Humphries. And I have long believed that Stan Humphries and Isaiah Thomas are the same guy. These are 2 players who were prepared to take a hit, lie on the ground, writhe in pain, limp off the court in a way that Terry Allen of the Vikings limped off the field when he had suffered career-ending knee injuries, right? The way that they took Paul George off the court at the World Championship trials, right? Who was the kid from Louisville who broke his leg?
Oh, Andre Ware?
No,
Kevin Ware.
Right, the way Kevin Ware went off the court at Louisville.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, what do you know, 4 minutes later, to the cheering crowd, there they were hobbling back on, and then he's blowing by somebody to go to the hoop, and Humphries is scrambling out in the pocket looking downfield. They were full of shit. They were full of shit. They weren't hurt.
What even makes Isaiah more
But Noah gets on the ground, and when he gets on the ground, it's keeping the possession alive. He's tipping it to a teammate. He always knows what he's doing. And he seems like a pain in the ass, but you'd love to have him on your team.
Yeah, and by the way, just for the record, what made it even more ridiculous what Isaiah Thomas was doing the entire time is that he played for the bad boys. He played for the team that actually hurt people.
That's
constantly, and yet he was still the biggest actor in the league. So
you just know it. Like, Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer, Mahorn, those guys were like,
think about
here we go.
Kris Humphries.
Here we go. Yeah.
Kris Humphries and Kobe Bryant were the overwhelming favorites on the comments thread of that question.
Kris Humphries gets a bad rap.
Just for dating a Kardashian. Or married to a Kardashian.
I agree.
By the way, he's playing really well.
Yes.
And I was happy when the Wiz got him, and I'm happy, and I've been proven correct.
I got no problem with Kris Humphries.